Greetings, this is Darth Vader here, and I figured we'd do some Skyrim content where we talk about how the different Jarls of Skyrim stack up against each other, and we're going to look at their motivations as well as how fleshed out of a character they are. So without further ado, let's begin. Maven Blackbriar goes straight to F tier. Reason being, she's a mob boss, and the thing about letting the mob run your city is this. All of the people who can afford to leave will leave, and that leaves behind only the poorest that could not afford to escape. And in that case, there won't be enough money in your economy, and your economy will collapse. So her choosing to be a crime boss is actually really short-sighted. Now, the other side of that coin is Layla Lawgiver, who also goes in the F tier because she is the other half of what's wrong with Riften. Think about it. Maven Blackbriar is a criminal, and Layla seems to be the only one in town that doesn't know it. Even the old Lioness knows that Maven's a criminal, and she's naive as hell. But Layla doesn't know that? How stupid can you be? Both of these women are two halves of a coin that explains why Riften is an unlivable third world shithole. Moving on to Brina, or whatever her name is. I don't even remember her. She gets an F just for not being memorable. She seems to basically be a palette swap for Legate Rika in the Imperial Army. Nothing remarkable to talk about there. Elisif the Fair also goes into the F category because she's basically a pretty paperweight. She doesn't actually govern as a Jarl. She relies on Falk Firebeard and General Tullius for all of her decisions. Incredibly naive. More naive, I would argue, than Layla Lawgiver. It's a pain to listen to this woman talk. That is why she's strictly in the F tier. Now we get to Dengeir. Dengeir is probably the only S tier Jarl, or one of the only S tier Jarls on this list, because Dengeir shows that he's able to have good insight. He says that he knows that Ulfric Stormcloak might be a little bit selfish, might be a little bit of a showboat, but despite the personality issues that may be there with Ulfric, the cause that Ulfric is fighting for is just and represents a better future for Skyrim. That is wonderfully fleshed out. Not only does he give you an explanation as to why he has the motives that he has, he's also able to show you that he's thought it thoroughly enough to not just commit guilt by association. Because a lot of you gamers out there who support the Imperials only do so because you think that Ulfric Stormcloak's a bit of a jerk. Instead, you're not actually looking at what he's fighting for. And for that reason, a lot of you don't seem to understand it, but Dengeir does understand that even if you don't like the person who is fighting for the cause, if you agree for the cause, it's still worth fighting for. Well done, Dengeir is S tier. The opposite is true of Idgrid Ravencrone, F tier, because Idgrid Ravencrone does not actually give you any answers that make sense. When you ask her what side of the war she supports, she says, I side with Morthal. That's a non-answer. Not only is it a non-answer, it's not even true because she supports the Imperials. If she truly sided with Morthal and Morthal alone like she says she does, then she would have just stayed neutral and not joined any side. But she's two-faced, she's duplicitous, and she's a standard politician. F tier with her. I'm about to make a lot of people mad by the next choice I'm going to make, but Balgruuf goes in F tier as well. Shocker, right? Let me explain. Balgruuf's only reason for siding with the Imperials is basically the history of the Empire. That the Empire and the Nords had a strong relationship. I'm sorry, but who the hell cares? Yes, maybe hundreds of years ago the Nords and the Empire had a strong relationship, but not now. Balgruuf represents stagnation. And that kind of stagnation is exactly what's wrong with the Empire, because the Empire thinks it can take the Nords for granted. That kind of status quo is exactly the reason why the war is being fought in the first place. So because of Balgruuf's lack of foresight, and because of his cop-out reason for supporting the Imperials, he goes strictly in the F tier. Vignar Greymane, on the other hand, goes in A tier. Not only is he a companion, which has that going for him, so he's brave and he's willing to fight for what he believes in, he also talks about the logistics behind repairing the city and making sure that there's enough food and making sure they're prepared for the next dragon attack. So While Balgruuf was looking at the past, Vignar was looking at the future. And that kind of visionary mentality is exactly why Vignar deserves to be in the Jarl seat, not Balgruuf. Which, sidebar, is why I think it's very fitting that Balgruuf is the first Jarl you dethrone in the Civil War quest line, because he represents that stagnation. Brunwulf Freewinter is a complaining, whining little bastard. His main motivation is that Ulfric's not doing enough to stop the bandits and protect Windhelm's Dark Elves. First of all, why does he have to put first priority some random refugees who have magic powers of their own and could probably defend themselves when he's got Nords to take care of? You always take care of your own family and your own house first, and then if you have resources left over, you take care of others. But Brunwulf doesn't understand that. Not to mention, when he actually becomes Jarl, if you side with the Imperials, he doesn't immediately jump to helping out the Dark Elves. He basically says, oh, I'll do it later. So he represents the same negligence that he accuses Ulfric of. He's a hypocrite. That is why he goes in the F tier. Corir goes in D tier. I was going to put him in C tier, but he goes in D tier. The main reason he goes in D tier is because of his ignorance. You just saved Winterhold from Ancano and from the magic anomalies, and you don't even so much as get a thank you from this man. He doesn't decide to change his views on the College of Winterhold. Instead, he just says, I hate the college, without actually thinking his position through. His motivations suck. Literally the only thing he has going for him is the fact that he's a Stormcloak supporter. If it weren't for that, he would go straight in F tier. Now we have Kraldar, which, again, I don't even remember him, so he gets F tier for not even being memorable. Now we have Skald. Skald goes in D tier as well, because of the fact that he's pretty much a palette swap for Corir. He doesn't really have any motivations outside of supporting the Stormcloaks. In fact, you see this when he diverts the majority of his forces to the war as opposed to guarding the home front. That's a huge problem, especially when you have a Daedra plaguing everybody in the city. So his lack of logistical foresight is why he goes in the D tier. And again, if he were an Imperial supporter, he'd go straight in the F tier. So literally, him and Corir are about equal in terms of their ignorance and what they don't understand about how the world works. Thongvar Silverblood thinks that he can control the Forsworn. That's obviously a mistake. He basically consorts with the enemy to use them as a pawn, and it ends up costing him his life at the end of the day. I don't see how anyone could possibly be that short-sighted, so he goes hard into the F tier. Now we have Sidgeir. Let me tell you, this little piece of shit. He's a money-grubbing bastard. All he cares about is wealth and increasing his own resources at the expense of everyone else. He doesn't care about the taxes and the oppression that his fellow Nords are going through. He only cares that he gets his next bottle of wine. He is basically what would happen if you combine Belethor with Thane Erriger. That's basically what he is. He is basically a sniveling, conniving crook, a corrupt politician. He is literally everything that's wrong with the Empire. Now we get to Sorely the Builder. Sorely the Builder goes in D tier. Her motivations are entirely self-serving, not to mention she's dumber than a brick. She literally thinks that becoming the Jarl of Riften would be an upgrade. The city that's being run to the ground by Maven and Layla together, she thinks that city's an upgrade from Morthal. How stupid can you be? She has no awareness whatsoever. And again, the only thing that saves her from F tier is the fact that she's a Stormcloak supporter. Now we move on to one of the more interesting picks, Igmund. Igmund goes in the F tier as well. Let me tell you why, and this is very important, so try to pay attention here. He lives in Understone Keep. Beneath Understone Keep is basically a Falmer hive within the excavation site. That's super dangerous. Do you remember Frostbow Lighthouse? How those guys basically lived in a house that's over a Falmer hive, and they got kidnapped and skinned alive and cut apart to be used in Falmer experiments? Literally, he's putting his own city in that exact same danger by not sending his troops to quash the Falmer and to make the city safe. He goes to bed every night just yards away from a Falmer hive. I can't think of a more irresponsible way of being a Jarl. He's putting himself and everyone in his town in danger for not deciding to do the excavation himself or send his troops to put down the rebellion. Just think about it. If some Imperial soldiers went down there and never made it back, clearly there's something dangerous down there. So either you should collapse the stone in front of the door to make it not able to be executed, or you should send every troop you have to clean out the Falmer. He's done neither. That's super irresponsible. Last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, the liberator, the true son of Skyrim. Enough said. Let me know what you think in the comments below.